Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Final hour of Nashville's Morning News. Joan, very quickly, you were playing some of the audio of those teachers that lost their ever-loving minds, and they were yelling at kids in the classroom after one of them, I guess, wore a Trump hat or shirt or something. The parents of those kids are now speaking out, and I'm going to play that audio coming up at 8:35 during the Gang of Four right here on Super Talk 99.7. It is unbelievably awesome. And speaking of unbelievably awesome, we've got Jonthan Fahey on with us. Jonthan, always great to have you on, former federal prosecutor, also worked with ICE, of course, and within the Trump administration first time around. And Jonthan, I got to ask you, first of all, I want to play you this audio from John Fetterman after Donald Trump announced that he wanted Matt Gaetz to be his attorney general.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
I mean, that is true. There's two things going on. I think number one is Donald Trump is looking to shock the system. And I mean, I think you are in the Washington, D.C. area. I think that's what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. John Fetterman is probably the most interesting Democrat to listen to these days because he does have, this rare ability in politics, certainly on their side, to actually see things in a different way. And he, spoke out during the campaign that, he kind of gave the suggestion that, Trump is doing something well and winning in Pennsylvania. But it is funny. It is like high-level trolling on a lot of ways, but also it just shows what Donald Trump and this administration thinks about what's been going on at DOJ. And I think most of the public don't like it either, with the politicization, with all of these things, not just the Trump prosecutions, but you got, 70-year-old grandmothers getting prosecuted still for, I don't know if it's still, but still for the January 6th cases. And they keep bringing these, and the school boards and all of these things that have been atrocious. And it's just funny watching the meltdown about this. But, you got to remember, look at Biden's pick. All it was just like DEI Olympics. It had nothing to do with qualifications. Look at what did Pete Buttigieg do to become the transportation secretary?
He was a mayor.
So what did he have to do with it? Rachel Levine, how was she picked? What, it's absurd. So, and look at, they were talking about, they've been complaining about Pete Hegseth, and it's like, well, how's Lloyd Austin done as defense secretary? It's been disastrous. We can't even recruit anymore. So, it's fun watching the meltdown. It's also, I think one thing with whether or not, when you talk about Matt Gaetz, whether or not he gets through. If he doesn't get through, the next person they put through will get through in flying colors. So that's also, there's probably a way to negotiate. Okay, we'll give up one, but you got to then confirm everyone else without, squawking.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because somebody said Matt Gaetz, maybe this is a decoy, and maybe that he is going to be, they're not the actual pick, but he announced Gaetz because he wants the next person to come through with flying colors. But now they're talking about a recess appointment. At least Donald Trump is talking about recess appointments. And, there's people that are saying, and people are hitting me up on the super text line saying, well, how good of a candidate do you have if the president needs to utilize a recess appointment to get your candidates through? And on the one hand, I do understand that, but I also understand that there's a lot of people that hate Donald Trump, even on the Republican side, and his first term in office, it was a train wreck trying to get his cabinet positions and his confirmations through.
Yeah, exactly. And, all the Democrats, the acting up, all of this stuff, in a way it brings out their worst qualities, and it's funny, you would think if you're on the Democratic side, you would think, all right, we may want to reset a little bit. We've been the party of abortion and anti-Trump, and it didn't work this time. Maybe we should, do a little bit of a recess and not fight every battle or go into hysterics every time someone says something that's somewhat politically incorrect or whatever, because people are so tired of it. But I do think, one thing with, the Trump presidency, they're off to a flying start because meaning, he's not even the president now, although he seems like he already is, but he's putting people in that are going to be strong on his agenda, and also, getting it in there before, getting things ready to roll, which I think he learned from his last term. Get the agenda done because 2026, the midterms are really going to be, if he executes his agenda effectively, it will be a good year for the Republicans. If he doesn't, it will be a tough year, and then you have the 2 years that you're fighting against the Congress. So I think he wants to get his agenda done. If he deals with immigration, deals with the taxes, gets the economy rolling, he's going to be in good shape. And I think he wants to focus on the issues and not necessarily have a bunch of, fights going on. But I think Fetterman may be onto something, but who knows? I don't really. This pick surprised people, but the Pete Hegseth pick surprised me. I gave it a little thought. It's like, well, the two biggest problems, at least from my vantage point of the military, are they can't recruit anymore, and everyone's sick of the woke stuff. Okay, you have a guy that's going to deal with both of those because he could bring in enthusiasm. He's somebody that people want to aspire to. He's, Lloyd Austin looks half asleep most of the time. He's not doing anything to recruit. So I think, it really will. And running the Pentagon, it's not one person running the Pentagon. He gets good people around him. And, so it's not necessary that you have to have somebody that had been there for 30 years or something. He can get good people around him. He's a smart person. He's an effective communicator, and he's in line with the agenda. And if we could, in 4 years, get rid of all this DEI woke stuff and start recruiting again, our military will be far better off than what's going on now.
And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having somebody with television experience, and he's a highly decorated veteran. He's got incredible education behind him as well. He's a best-selling author. And so you're right. If you're talking about recruitment, who better than a guy like Pete Hegseth to try to drive up that recruitment? Because as you know, it has been down. I love, though, the reaction from folks on the left.
Your president is moving quickly to fill the clown car and round out his cabinet. He has selected Fox Weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
Co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Not even like regular. Weekend. Pete Hegseth. Hegseth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the ladies, I'm using that term loosely, on The View, and many others, we saw this on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace, they're making fun of Hegseth's name, and they're also making fun of the pick. And generally speaking, they're making fun of a lot of Donald Trump's picks. But, when you look at the fact that, for example, Leon Panetta was one of the ringleaders, past Defense Secretary Leon Panetta was one of the ringleaders who lied to America regarding Hunter Biden's laptop and it being Russian disinformation. So a lot of these folks that are in this pool of swamp dwellers who would have been up for this job or these kinds of jobs, they're the types or have actually lied to the American people about things like the Hunter Biden laptop. It makes all the sense in the world once you take a step back and you look at who Pete Hegseth is and what he has not done in Washington, D.C. It does make all the sense in the world. You were talking, Jonthan, about some of these other folks like Leon Panetta, Lloyd Austin. Of course, he also lied about his prostate cancer surgery. Let's not forget the disastrous military apparatus of the Biden administration that pulled out of Afghanistan. That was a nightmare. So it's not like it's working out real well right now. But, the media, they're so desperate to try to discredit Pete Hegseth. They're decoding his tattoos. It's just nuts.
It's utter nonsense. And the vote for Donald Trump is a vote that says, hey, people aren't happy with the way Washington's working. So that's what, it happened last time. It's like, wait, the establishment was what fought against Donald Trump more than anything else. People in this establishment. It's like the American people don't see this establishment as working for them. It works for the people within the establishment, but outside of it, it doesn't. And you're right. They're going to do all of these things, but it's like, can they honestly look anyone in the mirror and say, hey, the way the Pentagon has been run for the last 4 years, has been great for America, has made us more secure, safer. There's no way they could credibly say that. So why not try somebody? And it's like, yeah, make fun of him for being on TV. He also went to Princeton. He also did all these other, he has 2 or 3 Bronze Stars.
He's got 2.
So it's like, this is a very accomplished person because he didn't go up through this establishment, the accepted establishment path. He shouldn't be selected. Well, Donald Trump didn't. Donald Trump hadn't run for school board and then county board and then state. He ran for president and won.
Point.
So it's like, he's not establishment. And, I just don't even see the argument. I mean, I see wanting to push back on nominees, just because you do it politically, but I don't find that to be a particularly compelling argument when they're doing it, and they're going to do it on everyone. And it's like, well, look at go back to like I was saying earlier, go back to their nominees. Yeah. And they had 4 years with their nominees. Is the country more prosperous? Are we safer? Like, what is better because we had these people that the establishment approved of in power? What is the objective criteria?
You know what? Jonthan,
we won because of them.
You're right. It's almost like, okay, let's look at what your side did. Let's look at what your people did to America, to Americans, and our border and our military. All of these things have been complete train wrecks, courtesy of the Biden administration. What do you think about the recess appointments? George Bush made 171 recess appointments. Bill Clinton, 139. Barack Obama made at least 32. Basically, as I've been explaining to folks, a recess appointment. Congress goes on recess. The president makes his appointments, and those appointments are approved because Congress, including the Senate, isn't working, and you just kind of blow through. You don't have the whole dog and pony show of the confirmation hearings, which, as you know, that basically is, a lot of yelling, finger pointing, a lot of gaveling, and so forth. I know that there's a lot of Republicans, even those who are on Donald Trump's side, that say, well, if you couldn't get these folks confirmed, then what does that say about the people that he wants to bring into for example, the defense secretary role or the attorney general's office? I mean, if you have to do it, kind of backdoor them in, what does that say? And I understand why Trump wants to do what he wants to do. But, in 30 seconds or less, I mean, I think you basically mentioned this before, but what is your overarching thought on the recess appointments?
Try to get them confirmed the normal way, I think, is the best way to do it, as more legitimacy and everything else. If they are fighting tooth and nail, being silly, playing games, all of that stuff, then go down the recess appointment route. I think the issue, my best understanding of it, is they need a recess apparently of at least 10 days. Yep. I think that could be a problem if you're trying to also get your agenda pushed through, because the first, 90 days, 100 days, whatever, they always say 100 days, but this is when you get stuff done. So I think you got to weigh all these out, but I think it's not bad to have that hanging out there to say to the opposition, we're putting these people in one way or another. You need to come along, or do you want to be just again, back to being the party of, anti-Trump, January 6th and abortion. If that's your party, that's your party. But then we're going to put these people in.
What'd you think of Joe Biden and Donald Trump's meeting yesterday? Biden was like beaming. And I swear, this just gives more ammunition for people to think that Joe Biden secretly wanted Donald Trump to win.
Yeah, the two happiest people in Washington yesterday, I think, were Biden and Trump, and probably Jill Biden as well. It is so funny that I think it stung him so bad the way they treated him that there is, he seemed the happiest. I mean, I watch the stuff, you watch it all the time, that I've seen him like just in any setting in the longest time. It was just like they seemed like they're having the time of their lives, and it's so funny watching the dysfunction with the Democrats, because they can't justify what they've been doing with respect to Biden for the last, 3 years, hiding his deficiencies and then dumping them when it became expedient for him. Yep. So, I think he's very happy. I think a lot of people in the Democratic side are thrilled that Trump won. I mean, Josh Shapiro is probably happy as a clam. Gavin Newsom, so many people are happy that he won, and it's just so, it is very funny to watch that, because, he was, Hitler a couple weeks ago, and now they're bringing him into the White House and yucking it up and, telling stories or whatever they were doing back there. But I'm sure, it just shows how incredible all of their attacks were to begin with. They never believed them to begin with.
Well, it's going to be interesting, too, because you got, in the news today, you've got these Democrat governors who are saying they're going to Trump-proof their states. And they just don't get it. California went way higher for Donald Trump than previous in 2016. And I think if I remember right, California got more votes for a Republican than they've received in years. And so they don't understand. These Democrat governors, they see what's going on in their states and across America, especially with illegal immigration. And they're saying that they're going to Trump-proof their states, which means that they're not going to cooperate with mass deportation. Well, Jonthan, you and I both know who's being deported. They're gang members.
Yeah, exactly. They should go back. The Massachusetts governor has been really outspoken on this too, and she's, it's really funny. They should go back to the Remain in Martha's Vineyard policy. And say, hey, why don't we send all of them there until they get their adjudicated in court? If you think it's so great, but it's so funny because what they're going to try to do, which they've always done and done successfully in the media, mischaracterize who's being deported. They're going to pass some law that'll say, we will not allow deportations in children's cancer wards. And so just to give the impression they're deporting kids that are getting, chemo or something. And everyone knows it's not true. They do that in Northern Virginia. The school system will not cooperate with ICE. It's like ICE was never going into schools and getting people. And the only time they would even consider it would be if it was a dangerous gang member with an imminent danger to the students, which people should want. But they're going to play all of those games. But I think it's ultimately, I guess there's Democratic Party is split. They have the people that are going to ride the anti-Trump thing to the end, and it's probably Newsom, the governor of Massachusetts. But I think there are going to be some other Democrats that are going to say, hey, the Republicans are actually reasonable on this issue and have been reasonable the entire time. So it's like, I question how it plays out, but if they want to have this battle, I think ultimately it hurts the residents of their state. You see day in and day out of these horrible crimes being committed by illegal aliens, and they're going to fight to keep them in their states. Well, that's going to ultimately, you're putting politics ahead of the safety of your own residents and citizens. It's insane to me.
Well, we'll have to see how it all plays out. Jonthan Fahey, always great to have you on the program, and we look forward to talking to you again. 8:25 on Nashville's Morning News.